All right, guys. You guys ready to kick this thing off?
I'm ready to kick it off, Jeff.
Let's do it.
Professional, man.
Let's do it.
In 2022, the green wave of Tulane took the college football world by storm, running through the AAC and winning the Cotton Bowl against the Southern California Trojans. A lot of people think this was a one-hit wonder, but Tulane football history goes back to 1902, including a 1934 SEC championship. 1934, also the year that this place, Bruno's Tavern, opened the doors for the very first time. Bruno's Tavern, boys and girls, where we are live. Group of Five live for the very first time in history. A Saturday morning pregame show from the Group of Five communities, brought to you by us, the Group of Five guys. If you're new here, if you don't know who we are, we're the Group of Five guys. Our mission is to bring the pride and excitement, to be the voice for the Group of Five football programs that ESPN and the mainstream sports media absolutely refuses to do. Jeff, for the first time ever, Group of Five live from New Orleans, Louisiana, Bruno's Tavern. How you feeling?
I feel outstanding. I couldn't be more excited to be down here in New Orleans. I love this city. Been here a handful of times, but have never been to a Tulane game. So I can't wait for the slate tonight. The bar looks incredible here. They're getting ready to open up here shortly. Hopefully we'll have a bunch of the Tulane faithful rolling in, and it's going to be a great day of college football.
Now, it may be nearly 11 a.m. local time, but I heard a rumor that they have $6 coconut Malibu rum drinks at this place. I mean, we're live on the air, but I might sneak one. Anyway, tip, South Alabama coming to town from Mobile. What are you looking forward to the most about this game?
I'm looking forward to this atmosphere here at Tulane, like what Murph just mentioned. First time here at Tulane for us. So I'm really excited to see the game day atmosphere down here. And what a better, I mean, there's not much of a better first game that we could ask for here with a very, very, very talented South Alabama team coming down to Tulane, 24th ranked in the country, Tulane. So really excited for this game tonight.
Well, and to be honest with you, there's not another game between any program in the state of Louisiana that's really worth anything this weekend. So this is for sure the biggest game in the state of Louisiana. I think that this should be a yearly rivalry game. They should call it the Battle of Mardi Gras. The winning team should get beads after the game. But Murph, I got to ask you this. Mardi Gras. History says it started in Mobile, Alabama. When you think of Mardi Gras, do you think Mobile or do you think New Orleans?
Well, I got to be honest, my entire life I thought it was New Orleans, but after our trip to the Senior Bowl this year, that's in Mobile, everybody in Mobile said Mardi Gras originated down there. So I don't know what to think anymore. I guess it gets settled on the field today.
Well, that's true. And if you saw South Alabama's helmets, the little label on the back of the helmet right here, if you're looking at the screen, they put home of Mardi Gras. And we know how much that equipment manager eats the Mardi Gras thing up. We saw some of that down there, too.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I mean, little fact here, Mobile was the original capital of Louisiana. So that's why they think that Mobile or Mardi Gras originated in Mobile. And then it seems like just from history, when it came to New Orleans kind of just amped it up a little bit. Right. So regardless, if it's in Mobile or New Orleans, you're partying on a Tuesday, right? So
there's no doubt.
So if anyone listening is going to Mardi Gras this year or anytime, go enjoy yourselves and have fun.
You feel it, you know, when I'm coming over I-10 today, I'm coming down to New Orleans. You just feel atmosphere. You feel the drinks flowing. You just know people are drunk. It's 6:45 in the morning. It's 7:45. It's 9 a.m. It's 11 a.m. They're drinking Malibu coconut rum drinks. This place is wild. And I don't know what we're in for at 7 p.m. tonight in New Orleans, but I hope we get a sellout crowd. The weather, it's sprinkling a little bit out right now, but the forecast says we're going to have a beautiful night for football. Murph, I can't think of anywhere I'd rather be.
No, I wouldn't rather be anywhere else. And a full slate of tailgating for the Tulane faithful today. And you know South Alabama's going to travel well.
Yep.
So can't wait to get out to the tailgate, check that out, meet as many people as we can today. But that's not the only game that we got today. We got a full slate of the Group of 5 conferences, Group of 5 teams playing, and it's going to be a great day.
Well, and speaking of, other games, other teams, a little bit of breaking news as of the last couple days. SMU, conference mate of Tulane, taking their talents to the Atlantic Coast Conference. I mean, listen, SMU for years has been a cheese and wine school. I'm tired of holding my breath about these guys because they're a Group of 5 school. I've been nice. I've been trying to tweet nice things about them. Their fans get after me if they're not ranked number 1 in every poll that we do. And now they go to the Atlantic Coast Conference where they're 1,000 miles away from their closest opponent. And, Jeff, they don't get any revenue for 9 years.
Yeah, man, I don't really get the move, especially with how fluid the conference realignment has been going the last couple of years. It's only going to continue to change. So they make the move to the ACC. And, yeah, there's no media money's coming to SMU for the first 9 years. Stanford and Cal are only going to get 30% share of that media money for the first, I believe, 7 years, and then 8 and 9, it goes up after that. But to me, it makes no sense when you have West Coast teams and even a school that's in Texas to be traveling to the East Coast. And like I said, football is not going to make a huge deal. But women's volleyball, baseball, softball, how's that going to work out travel-wise when you got to travel on a Tuesday, Wednesday night across the country? It just makes no sense.
Yeah, we talk about it all the time. And what's it going to look like when you have a big conference matchup in the Atlantic Coast in Berkeley, California, and the game's going to start at 11:30 at night on the Atlantic Coast?
Yeah, I don't understand it at all. And then here's the kicker: somehow Notre Dame is like floating around in the ACC. They still get a share of the money, but they're not technically in the conference. So I don't understand that either.
Yeah, I never thought that I would. Normally I watch Hawaii on the nightcap, the late night games after I've had 3 or 4 energy drinks, about 1,000 milligrams of caffeine. Now I'm going to be watching a big, Atlantic Coast Conference game. But anyway, speaking of Hawaii tip, we had them as our underdog going into the week. They held it close with Stanford last night. They just were a little bit overmatched. What do you think?
Yeah, and what I noticed watching that game was they were overmatched at the line of scrimmage. Stanford on the defensive line and the offensive line were just flat out bigger than what Hawaii had, and Stanford's defensive line was getting a ton of pressure on Braden Shager, Hawaii's quarterback. He was scrambling most of the night, wasn't able to sit back in that pocket and complete these throws like he was against Vanderbilt last week. But man, Hawaii's receiver, the freshman, Pafeli Ashlock, man, this guy is a player.
Yeah.
I mean, last week against Vanderbilt, he had around 7 receptions, something like 125 yards and 1 or 2 touchdowns. And then last night against Stanford, 8 receptions, 114 yards, 2 touchdowns. So I mean, this guy's true freshman out of Texas, I believe Dallas, Texas. I really like what I saw in the Hawaii passing game though. In the offense, it's so much more improved than it was last season. But just last night, they went up against a Stanford team that was just bigger than them at the line of scrimmage.
Well, they'll get better as the year goes along, and then once they get into conference play, it's a little bit different. And I think, Jeff, you said it last week, Timmy Chang's got that team moving in the right direction. But what did I tell you guys about taking the receivers? Anytime they have an over-under total of 5.5 or less, you got to take the over every time. At 8 receptions for him last night. So, I mean, it's easy. And speaking of, download Prize Picks, download the app, use our code GOFG. They'll match you your first-time deposit up to $100. I spent some time watching the Battle of Miami last night, and I was just hoping Gabbert would be able to come up with something offensively, and they just couldn't get it going. I know the Hurricanes are supposed to be better this year defensively. They're secondary. They've got an All-American back there, so it was tough. And they held their own for a while, but they just couldn't get it done. And thankfully, Gabbert left that game healthy because he ran a few times in the third quarter, and I was like thinking, here we go, Curtis Rourke 2.0, what we talked about with these MAC quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, that O-line struggled against the Miami pass rush, and he was running for his life at times, but he took a couple big shots trying to extend plays. And I know you're trying to do everything that you can, but we got to understand as quarterbacks that, these are non-conference games. You're so much more important to your team than this game. Of course, you want to do your best, and when you say the words that he said before the game,
that's right,
saying that they were the real Miami, you got to go out there and at least back it up a little bit. They were just outmatched on both sides of the ball up front, and then that back end for Miami is really good. Those receivers just could not create any separation yesterday.
Yeah, and like I said, they held their own. So again, that's going to be another contender in the MAC, and I will give it to the announcers of that game last night on ACC Network that they were giving the Miami Ohio team a lot of credit. Their defense is pretty good. Also in the MAC, you had Central Michigan going to Michigan State. Central Michigan is a team that we didn't talk about much in our MAC show. They've got a stout defensive line.
Yes, they do. And I apologize for that game, because I jinxed that because
yes, you did.
I took a screenshot when Central Michigan scored to go up 7-3 in the second quarter. I took a screenshot of the TV and sent it in our group chat, and they didn't score a point the rest of the game. So I apologize for that. But seriously, Central Michigan on defense looked really, really solid in that first half.
Their defense is stout. They've got that nose, number 71, who I think they said is a chemist or some kind of scientist, something smarter than I am. But he's a hell of a football player, and that's another team. I mean, they were in that game late, and then Michigan State, just in your typical fashion when it is a Power 5 team, it's you got the talent, but then late in the game, it's the depth. And that's where the Big Ten offensive and defensive linemen just wear on you and wear on you and wear on you. And Central Michigan couldn't get anything going offensively. Jeff, you wanted to talk about UAB, where they played North Carolina A&M, but UAB had a stat line that's outrageous in Trent Dilfer's first game.
Yeah, I mean, the opener for Dilfer, and we wondered, what's the impact that he's going to have right away, right? And I know it's against, not a terrible opponent in North Carolina A&M, but this stat line by Jacob Zeno, their quarterback, let me read this for you. You got 38 of 41, 291 yards, and 3 touchdowns. That's 92% completion rating on the day. That is ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. So, and 14 different receivers caught a pass. So, now, are they going to do that every game? No, but when you play a team like this, you can't play any better than UAB did. And then defensively, they had 6 sacks, and North Carolina only threw the ball 8 times. So the 8 times they had 6 sacks. So they just completely dominated it, start to finish. And then Jermaine Brown had a nice, easy day, had 6 rushes, 2 touchdowns. I don't think he played the whole second half. So it preserves his legs because he's going to be needed down the stretch in that conference.
And that's what you want in a game like that. And in a lot of these games today where you're playing an FCS opponent, you want to play a clean game. You don't want to turn it over. You don't want to have stupid penalties. You want to do the right assignments, and you want to play for 2 or 3 quarters and then get some freshmen, get some young guys a chance to get some in-game action because, they may not play again the rest of the year, some of those young guys. So that's all you want to see from a lot of these games. And most of the games today are kind of the same way. You're either playing a top-tier Power 5 team or you're playing an FCS team, and all you want to do is just play a clean football game and get out of there healthy. So that's all you can really ask for. But we got to talk about today. We got a couple games underway already, so let's try to get into this quickly. We did, I left my home at about 3:30 this morning to get here. So just, if you're looking at the time and you're like, yes, it said 10:30, you started at 10:38. Sorry, there was traffic. Okay, but in Conference USA, you got a bunch of games. You got our alma mater, Middle Tennessee, going to Tuscaloosa tonight. You got Bowling Green at Liberty. You got La Tech at SMU. East Tennessee State going to Jacksonville State. South Florida Bulls at Western Kentucky. Maine going down to Florida International. Western Illinois at New Mexico State. Incarnate Word at UTEP. And then you got Sam Houston State at BYU. Bowling Green at Liberty. That game's underway. I'm going to go to Tip first on this game. Jamie Chadwell's first game at Liberty. What are your thoughts?
So I'm thinking right off the bat, I think, comparing these two teams, I think Liberty has the better offense in this matchup. Bowling Green's offense has trouble throwing the ball down the field, and their O-line has had difficulty stopping good defensive lines last season. And a good defensive line is exactly what Liberty has.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to be able to get pressure back in Bowling Green's backfield most of the day and disrupt the passing game and the running game as well. I just don't think Bowling Green's offense can keep up with Liberty's offense. So I think Jamie Chadwell gets his first win as Liberty head coach today.
Yeah, and that game's underway right now. Liberty is going. They're in the red zone, looking like they're going to score. And our good friend Zach Green, who calls in weekly on our Tuesday show, he said that Chadwell was not going to name a starter until right before the game. That's exactly what happened, and he was right. Caden Salter got the start as opposed to Bennett, and so far he's driving them down the field. Looks like they're going to get a score.
Well, let me wait about 5 minutes. I'll tell you who I'm picking in that game, depending on what happens. Depending on what happens next. We talked about SMU going over to the ACC. La Tech with a win last week in week 0 over FIU. This is a test for La Tech, right? Because we still don't really know. And SMU is supposed to be one of the better teams in that conference. So, Jeff, does La Tech stand a chance? Or is SMU, thinking, hey, they're on to greener pastures and they're overlooking this game?
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say is I think it's a test for both teams. La Tech did a great job in the second half. I'll give Bachmeier credit. He showed up in that second half against FIU last week. But SMU has a lot of question marks. They lost a lot of pieces, and they got to replace a lot. So I think SMU has the advantage. But if Bachmeier can continue to do what he did in that second half of that game last week, it's going to be a lot closer than 19 points. That's what the spread is right now. So it's going to be an interesting game to watch. But I think both teams have to prove something in this game.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think.
Yeah. Tip, earlier in the week, we took Western Kentucky as our lock of the week at minus 11.5 versus my South Florida Bulls. Are you sticking with that pick?
I am, yes. Sprouse, just cover your ears on this. I know how much you love your South Florida Bulls. Man, I just think Austin Reed and Malachi Corley and that Western Kentucky offense are just going to be able to do whatever they want to do against this USF defense today. And we've talked about it before. South Florida has Tennessee's former offensive coordinator, Alex Golesh, as their head coach now. I just don't know if they're going to have that much success on offense in his first season as head coach. So I think Western Kentucky wins this game by a lot today at home. I'm predicting like by 20 or 20-plus point win.
Yeah, I agree. I think 11.5 is an awfully small number for that game. South Florida, I think, will score a few points this year. I think their offense will be a little bit better, but their defense is still got a lot of work to do. I do want to give a shout-out. There's a couple Sam Houston State fans in the bar here, and they go to BYU, and I don't think they stand a chance, Jeff. So let's move on. Into the Mountain West, you got a couple games. Utah State going to Iowa is interesting. Fresno State's going to Purdue. That's one of the lowest point spreads of the week, is that Fresno State at Purdue. Air Force has Robert Morris at home. UNLV has Bryant. Nevada goes to Southern Cal. New Mexico goes to Texas A&M. You got Washington State at Colorado State, which I believe is a sellout there in Fort Collins. Nice. Texas Tech at Wyoming. Idaho State, San Diego State, Oregon State at San Jose State, possibly future conference rivals. Jeff, you've always been a big Fresno State guy. Mikey Keene takes over for Jake Haener. They go to Purdue. I think that game's underway also, by the way. Yeah. So what are your initial thoughts on that game?
Well, my initial thoughts are, if anybody can replace offensively the firepower that they lost last year, it's Jeff Tedford.
That's right.
And they lose Haener, they lose Mims, they lose Moreno Cropper, their top 3 pass catchers. And that's just so much to replace. But they named Mikey Keene the starter this week, and I think he's the guy. I think he gives them the best shot right now to put some points up and to move this offense forward. I just think it's, the opener, you're going to be working out a lot of kinks with a lot of new players, but so is Purdue. They lost their starting quarterback last year as well, but it's going to be hot up there. We played there while we were at MTSU, and it's not an easy place to play, especially traveling from the West Coast, but I think that Fresno State can go in there and move the ball in the air. If they get ahead, I think it's going to be hard for Purdue to keep up with a potent Bulldog offense.
Yeah, I think you'll see both of these offenses. I don't want to say struggle, but they'll kind of be off a little bit in the
they got
first
growing
half.
pains.
It's going to be low scoring. So Fresno State's key is, even with possible mistakes on the offensive side of the ball in the first half, keep it close in the second half. Give yourself a chance, because if this offense clicks with Mikey Keene there, then and you keep it close in the second half, that obviously gives you a great chance to win and to upset Purdue on the road.
Yeah, and when you have a tight game in a game like that, everybody's, Fresno State is not being overlooked by anybody, certainly not by Purdue. But if that game is close late, then the pressure goes over to Purdue.
100%. Yeah.
And, and Fresno State starts getting more and more confident the longer that game goes. So that's where you want to, if you're any of these Group of 5 teams going to a Power 5 school where you're a heavy underdog, just keep it close, do what you do, and hope the other team makes a mistake or hope you make a big-time play.
Well, I will say this, too, and the thing that's going to be a little different for Fresno State this year is their defense, I think, might have a chance to actually lead this team. They're going to be one of the top defenses in the Mountain West, especially in their back end, their defensive backs. So, look for Fresno State to keep opposing offenses a little bit lower scoring than they have in years past.
Yeah. Washington State at Colorado State in Fort Collins. Shout out to Matt Mummy, been on the show 3 or 4 times with us on our Tuesday night and on our inside drill. Washington State, another one that's kind of left out of this conference realignment deal. But Clay Millen, Torrey Horton, I just want to see what they do today. I want to see how it's Washington State, but it is a Power 5 team. I want to see if they can show out like I think most everybody expects them to.
Yeah, and I'm just excited to see Jay Norvell in his second year. I mean, everywhere he's been, he has been successful at turning programs around. So I want to see if that defense has gotten a little bit better. Their rusher, Mohamed Kamara on the outside, had 8.5 sacks last year. So he's going to have to continue that production on that defensive line. And you mentioned Clay Millen. Fantastic freshman year last year, all things considered. And then you get the Blitnikoff watch list player in Torrey Horton.
Yeah.
He's one of the best receivers in college football. So can't wait to see him tear it up today.
And they've got to just find a way this year to put it in the end zone. When they get close, when they have these long drives, these big plays, they've got to get points. If I remember correctly, I don't think they had a single game where they scored more than 21 points last year. And that you're not going to beat a whole lot of anybody if you don't score 20 points.
That's exactly what they're going to have to do today, because Washington State, they have a good offense. And their offensive coordinator is Western Kentucky's offensive coordinator from last season, 27-year-old Ben Arbuckle. So we've seen what he does as the offensive coordinator up there in Western Kentucky. So, like you said, Sprouse, they're gonna when they drive and get into the red zone on offense, they got to put the ball in the end zone.
Texas Tech going to Wyoming. We like Wyoming in the Mountain West. We like their defense. However, I'm going to go to tip on this because Texas Tech has Zach Kitley, who you were high on 2.5 years ago when he showed up at Western Kentucky with a young man named Bailey Zappi.
Right, yeah, that's exactly right. And that's what has me worried in this game. We know Wyoming has one of the best defenses in the Group of 5, and they play well at home. They're going to have to play really well on defense to slow down this Texas Tech offense. But on Wyoming's offense, they need to be able to successfully run the ball in this game, and so that the passing game can open up on that. Elevation might be a little bit of an issue early on with Texas Tech. It can be challenging for opposing teams coming into Wyoming. Again, if Wyoming can keep this game close in the second half, find a way to stop this Texas Tech offense, it gives them a chance to win and to beat Texas Tech at home.
Well, are they going to win? I don't know, but I know they play the perfect brand of football to beat a team like this. Control the clock. Their ground game is their key on offense. If Andrew Peasley can protect the ball and not turn it over, Harrison Whaley coming over from NIU, he's a good running back. They got a good O-line. Control the time of possession. If you can get a couple stops with that good defense they have, keep the ball out of that Texas Tech offense's hands, you have a shot. You'll be around hanging late, and you can steal one.
Yeah. Oregon State going to San Jose State. San Jose State looked pretty darn good against Southern Cal. Do they have a bit of a hangover? Is Oregon State as good as everybody thinks they are? I'm looking forward to see Shavon Cordero at home, and I don't know. I smell an upset in this game.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough. San Jose State's defense is going to have to show up and get some key stops. I'm not worried about that offense with San Jose State and Shavon Cordero. He's shown year after year he protects the ball. He's a dual threat guy. He can get outside of the pocket when routes aren't there or they're covered. And their ground game looked pretty good last week against a good USC team. So, if that defense can get a couple stops, maybe a couple turnovers, Cordero and that offense will take care of the rest. And I just hope the San Jose State Spartan faithful show up. Because this is a huge game. And from a Bay Area kid, San Jose has not had a great following and a great showing in years past. Show up for this team. This is a huge game today. And it'd be great to see the Spartans get the win.
100%. And moving on to the MAC, and remember, we are live from Bruno's Tavern on Maple Street in New Orleans. They got $6 Malibu coconut drinks.
What'd she
they
say?
got mimosas.
Is it National Coconut Day? Is that what she said?
I didn't know that was a thing, Tip. But
I didn't-
it sounds
I
good
didn't
to me.
either.
I'm a Florida guy, palm tree guy. Coconuts sound pretty good to me. But listen, they don't have coconuts and palm trees in the MAC, anywhere in the MAC. NIU going to Boston College. This is a game we like a lot. Rocky Lombardi, healthy. Trayvon Rudolph, healthy. Thomas Hammock looking to get NIU back after just a disappointing year with a bunch of injuries last year. They go to Boston College, and I do have to give a shout-out to our guy, Kyle Hergel, who transferred from Texas State. But, Kyle, sorry, buddy. NIU all the way. Tip, you think Lombardi has a coming-out party today?
I sure hope so. Him and Trayvon Rudolph, their top wide receiver, I'm assuming he's back today as well. So the success that this offense had in 2001 when both of these guys were on the field, if they can replicate that and just get the ball rolling right off the bat against Boston College, they have a fantastic chance to win today.
Yeah, I agree. You also in the MAC, you have Long Island at Ohio, and then Buffalo goes to Wisconsin. I don't like Buffalo to win that game, but I do like them to scare Wisconsin just a little bit. Akron at Temple. Jeff, you had Temple as a dark horse in the MAC. I've loved E.J. Warner since a Wednesday or Thursday night game last year. 9.5. We might need to relook at our lock of the week because I think Temple could blow this one open quick.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, E.J. Warner had a very, very good season last year. Statistically, 3,000 yards, 18 touchdowns, only 12 interceptions. He's got to get the interceptions down a little bit, get that ratio better. But he's an incredible quarterback. He's mobile. He can move around. He's got the mind, being the son, of Kurt Warner. But Temple's key really is that defense. They actually have a sneaky good defense, starting in the middle with their two linebackers, and they're going to need every bit of that today. But yeah, I agree with you. 9.5 seems a little short. And the only thing that I can think of is that Vegas is high on DJ Irons. I mean, he is a dual threat guy, so it's going to be hard to keep him in the pocket. But I think Temple's defense, if they can do it, then Warner's going to have a field day with that secondary for the Zips because it's going to be tough sledding for that defense.
Yeah. Tip, Toledo goes to Illinois in another one of 26 Group of 5 versus Power 5 opportunities this week. This is one that I think we debated a little bit if this was going to be a one. DeQuan Finn gave Notre Dame nightmares. I don't remember if it was last year or the year before, and Illinois ain't Notre Dame. Do you think Toledo is one of the ones that gets it done today?
Well, I definitely think they cover. So Illinois is favored by 9 in this game. And shout out to the Swag Bear. This is a game he had brought up as a lock of the week. I definitely think Toledo covers this 9 points. We know what Illinois' game plan is going to be in this game. They're going to try and run the ball effectively on offense, and they're going to rely on their defense to keep this game close. And Toledo, I mean, they have a great defense with one of, if not the best secondary. And not only the Group of 5, but in the entire nation.
Yep.
I think the big question is which Toledo offense is going to show up today. They were inconsistent at times last year. They turned the ball over quite a bit. If they can reduce the number of turnovers on offense and stop this Illinois run game, they have a chance to upset Illinois.
Yeah, I like that one a lot. I like Toledo a lot. Moving on to the Sun Belt, a lot of FCS games. And then the first one on our list, Arkansas State's already down 14-0 to Oklahoma. Got a couple Oklahoma fans sitting in the bar here watching that. But Gardner-Webb goes to App State. Citadel going to Georgia Southern. I don't know if y'all saw what Citadel's head coach said the other day. They asked him who the starting quarterback was, and he said, "We don't have one." So I don't like that game for Citadel. Bucknell goes to James Madison. Albany at Marshall. Army at ULM. That game got ugly quick last year. Army is just, they're tough, and they're a target for the American Conference, by the way. But 10, it's at Monroe. I don't like it. I think Army, Army could get up 14-0 really quick in that game, and then there's, next thing you know, it's halftime.
Yep. Especially with the new running clock this year.
That's right.
It just all plays a factor in that game.
That's right. Texas State goes to Baylor, 26.5. It's a lot of points. I think both of those teams are going to score a ton.
I'm excited to see
today.
Texas State's offense today.
Yeah. I agree. And it'll be interesting to see, we met all their O-line last year, and they should have had a really good offensive line, but they brought in just about everybody from Incarnate Word with G.J. Kinney. So we'll see. We'll see how that holds up against Baylor. Alcorn State goes to Hattiesburg to play Southern Miss. Stephen F. Austin's at Troy. Old Dominion has had Virginia Tech's number the last couple times. And they're talking about Virginia Tech and Blacksburg getting up for this game, which is awesome, number one. But can Old Dominion get it done again in what we know is going to be a brutal environment?
Yeah, it's going to be tough. And ODU, they lost some pieces to the portal. Their top receiver, Ollie Jennings, goes to Virginia Tech. You also had Jalen Lane from alma mater go to Virginia Tech. So there's going to be some alternate storylines there. It's just, can this quarterback, Grant Wilson, be the guy? Can he control the ball, not turn it over? And then you have, on the other side, Virginia Tech sticking with Grant Wells, which I think is an interesting take. He looked rough at times last year. I guess they've seen something in the offseason that has made them think that he is the guy moving forward. But I wasn't sold on him last year, and we'll see what happens today. But one of the best linebackers in the country plays for Old Dominion, and I know you love him, Sprouse.
Jason Henderson, 180-plus tackles a year ago. So, again, I don't know what's going to happen with this game. Virginia Tech may win by 16 or more. Old Dominion may upset them. But I do know that Jason Henderson is going to be all over the field. And I told you guys on the Sunbelt preview show, just look at the guy. I mean, the guy's yoked, dude. Just one of the, it's like he puts when he puts his hands down on his thigh pads, I think he flexes a little bit just to make sure everybody can see his triceps. But the guy definitely looks the part, and I'm excited to see what he does against a quote-unquote Power 5 team. The other game in the state of Louisiana, Northwestern State going down to Lafayette. Just excited to see Louisiana. I'm so sorry, Louisiana fans. You are not ULL. I promise I'll never do it again. I look forward to them being better this year. I think they're going to be good offense on the offensive line, and I think that's going to carry them. And again, with all these games, all you want to see, Old Dominion, Virginia Tech is probably the only game in the Sun Belt that will be competitive. You just want to see these guys come out healthy, play it clean, not a lot of penalties, no stupid turnovers, and just get out of there. The American Conference is got the best games, I feel like, this week. So you got East Carolina going to Michigan. Can we see another Carolina team upset Michigan at the Big House? 36 is a heck of a lot of points, but I don't see an upset coming. I think Michigan is one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the country this year. So I don't see that happening. Rice goes to Texas. South Carolina State at Charlotte. We love Charlotte. We got to give a shout-out to Charlotte. Last year, we were in Boone, North Carolina, watching Charlotte lose to William and Mary, which is what essentially put Coach Healy on the hot seat, and then it was, kind of downhill from there. So excited to see the bad company, as Coach Poggi calls it, and just them again. Get in there, get it done, and get out of there. Monmouth goes to FAU, and then Bethune-Cookman goes to Memphis. I think Memphis and Florida Atlantic are both very good, and I think those are over quickly. But let's get into it, boys. Our top 5 games of the week, will all 3 make these picks. We'll dig in a little bit more. Our game of the week, of course, is South Alabama at Tulane, and that's where we are live from Bruno's Tavern here in New Orleans on Maple Street. Tell you what, my stomach's growling, so I can't wait to put these microphones down, sit down, have a beer, have a burger, have a po' boy, something like that. But maybe a $6 Malibu rum. We can't let Tip have $6 Malibu rum yet.
Not yet.
Murph, it's way too early. It's way too early for that. But let's get going here. Cal at North Texas. North Texas is the team that we were all pretty high on. One of the new teams in the American. New head coach. Jeff, your Cal Bears. I mean, that's your team
I
you
know.
grew up with. I mean, the new ACC member, they're going to Denton, Texas.
And I don't like it for the Cal Bears. I'm going to be honest with you. I think North Texas is a really, really good team. One of the surprising notes that came out this week is that ULM transfer Chandler Rogers did not win that starting job at quarterback.
I love that.
It is the guy who started at third string at the start of camp, earned his spot, won the job, is Stone Earl. And don't know a lot about this kid, but he's going to start. They did say that they're gonna play a couple quarterbacks to see who's but it's going to start out how hot does Stone go?
That's right.
And they got a great slew of running backs. They're changing their offensive scheme a little bit, so that to me is interesting. They're going to the air raid, which they have a slew of running backs. So I'm interested to see how that works. But they also got a great receiver in Roderick Burns. He's coming back. Their top two guys are coming back on the outside. So he's going to have plenty of options on the outside and just control the clock with that ground game. Cal's quarterback is not the guy they announced the starter. He is not a great passer. He's more of a dual threat guy. He likes to run. So if that North Texas defense can keep him in the pocket, force him to throw, I think North Texas gets the upset.
I love when a head coach names a quarterback the starter that was not the expected guy, because that means Stone Earl was way better than everybody else. Because if it was close, most coaches are going to take the safe route. It reminds me of when Pete Carroll and the Seahawks signed Matt Flynn to that ginormous deal and drafted Russell Wilson super late, and Russell Wilson beat him out in camp, and Russell Wilson turned out to be pretty good until he got to Denver. But I love that, and I'm looking forward to see it, and I hope he keeps the job. I mean, I'm rooting for a guy like that to come in as the third guy on the depth chart.
Yep.
It's easy. Coaches have to swallow their pride to do something like that, and I'm glad that they did it at North Texas, and I think, I think this is an upset. So let's pick it. Let's go through the whole. I'm taking North Texas. Tip?
I'm taking North Texas. Yeah, this is a new fast-paced offense for North Texas. This is a Cal defense that gave up 429 yards a game last year. So I think North Texas has the better offense in this matchup, and I think they just flat out outscore them in this game. So I'm going with North Texas with the upset at home.
Well, there's one of the group of five versus Power Fives. You taking North Texas too, Jeff?
I think the Mean Green get it done.
They better not let us down. Coastal at UCLA. This is the nightcap tonight. This is a 10:30 Eastern kickoff, I believe. So, we'll hopefully be able to, after this Tulane game, come maybe back here to Bruno's and catch the second half of that game. This is a story of Chip Kelly and UCLA talking about using three different quarterbacks. Coastal Carolina, we know Grayson McCall's the guy. He's been the guy. Is this another one, Tip, that we could get an upset in?
I hope so. I really do. And I'm picking Coastal Carolina, obviously, because what's the saying? It's usually if you have two quarterbacks, if you're playing two quarterbacks, you have no three.
Right.
I don't even know what you call that.
No.
You
don't have one.
It means you do not have one at all. So I love the veteran presence of this Coastal Carolina offense. They've been there. They've done it. Grayson McCall, Sam Pickney, Jared Brown, C.J. Beasley, all about to have great games. And they're going to upset UCLA at UCLA.
Well, and here's we talked about North Texas before, having three quarterbacks on the depth chart, and the third guy beats everybody out and earns the starting job. And then you go to UCLA where you have three quarterbacks, and they don't know. So, maybe they're all three really good, which is possible. I mean, everybody's really good at the Division I college football level. Everybody can play. So I'm not sitting here trying to say that they're bad, but nobody has stepped up. And whether that be on the field or even off the field, especially when you're talking about a quarterback as being the guy that, Jeff, this, and I was an O-line guy, I know this too. Sometimes when you're, it's like your buddies in the huddle, you're all five linemen, the quarterback, it's just a different feel, and it's a different feel from a leadership perspective.
Absolutely. And when you have the trust of your offense, and specifically your offensive line, it's just that extra inch. They're going to go for you. They're going to hold on. They're going to block for you, and they really care, about the job that they're doing in front of you. But here's my thing: quarterbacks in Chip Kelly's offense, they're going to put up numbers. Yeah. They're going to put up points. I think the biggest thing in this game is this new look Coastal Carolina defense. It's supposed to be different than years past. They want to send guys, give all types of different looks, and that's what Trickett was talking about when we interviewed him. That's Coastal Carolina's offensive coordinator in the offseason. He said they're going to send different looks. You're never going to know what's coming, and they want to bring pressure. Now, if you're bringing pressure, you better have guys in the back end that can cover one-on-one. So that's going to be interesting to see against Chip Kelly's offense. But if you want to take a quarterback, it's Grayson McCall, Sam Pickney.
That's right.
I mean, that offense is loaded. I hope the offensive line gives him time and can protect, because you always have that size issue a little bit when you're playing a Power 5 school. But, I mean, I picked Coastal Carolina to win the Sun Belt, boys. I'm
Yes,
not
you
changing
did.
my pick now. I think they go into Pasadena, steal a win.
I don't remember what I picked last night when you asked me. I keep going back to the South Alabama game at UCLA last year, and they lost by a missed field goal. I think Coastal covers. I think UCLA is going to pull this out, and it might be on some BS. It might be on a penalty call. It might be on a just, phantom timeout, phantom turf monster getting somebody. But I just see this not going well. And I do want to give a quick shout out, because next Saturday we will be live from Conway, South Carolina. Steeple_PC_51. Cannot wait to see you, brother. Cannot wait to have some Yingling flights with you. But I apologize. I'm picking UCLA to win this game. Tip. You already picked Coastal,
I did,
didn't you?
yeah. Coastal Carolina. They're winning that game.
Now, here's one where I got to pick Boise State. They go to Washington. Where's Washington ranked right now? I should have this, but anyway, they're definitely a top-ranked team. Boise State, it's 14.5 dogs in this game. But I remember preseason, I said Boise State has the perfect schedule to make a run and potentially have a shot at a playoff. And they've got to win this game to do that. But Washington, again, we say it all the time. Middle Tennessee's going to Alabama. Middle Tennessee can upset Miami. They can upset Syracuse. They can upset Georgia Tech. Alabama's something different. Washington ain't Alabama. Washington ain't Ohio State. Washington ain't Michigan. Washington's going to be a very good team, and they could, if Washington wins, they could be a playoff team this year. But I think Boise State, I'm looking forward to see Talon Green. Is he the guy that the fans in Boise, Idaho think he is? Can he take that next step, Jeff? You've talked about it all offseason. And then I really want to see Ashton Genty and George Halani, that two-headed monster at running back. I think we're going to have some fireworks in that game. That's all I know. But I'm picking Boise State.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough for Boise, especially on the defensive side. They lost a lot of key pieces last year. And if there's one thing that Washington can do is score points. Yeah. So, and this is where you got to play the game within the game, in my opinion. What do you do well at Boise State? Your offense should be really good this year. Control the clock. Yeah. Use those running backs. Use Talon Green's legs. Control the time of possession. And again, you stay in the game. Get through halftime, hang around, and then steal it at the end. It just worries me that Washington is trying to get into the playoff. They're trying to prove a point. I don't think they're overlooking Boise State at all.
No.
If Boise State's going to win this game, it's because they're coming and showing up, and they're playing the best football that they've played in a long time. It is not going to be an easy game. I think they cover the spread, 14.5, but I do think Washington gets the win.
Yeah, and Michael Penix I think he knows his name's in the Heisman hat right now, and so that guy's going to want to do everything he possibly can. Now, maybe he'll try to do too much, and that could hurt his case. But, Tip, I think, he's very good. I told you guys earlier in the week that I was getting ready to call the guy overrated, and then I watched some film, and I looked up some stats, and I was like, no, he's a good ball player. So what are you going with?
This game has me nervous for Boise State for there's two concerns. What Murph mentioned, this high-powered Washington offense. We know they're going to score a lot of points in this game. So Boise State's going to have to keep up and keep up with scoring points. The other thing is Washington has a good front seven on defense. I think that's where this game could potentially be decided, is if Boise State can have some success running the ball against this Washington front seven. If they do and they control the clock, like Murph said, then this game they're going to control the time of possession, and then this game should be close going into the second half. But I just think Washington's offense is going to be too much in this game, so I'm going to pick Washington to win this game.
Yeah, and that's going to be the key too, like you guys both said, time of possession. Because when you have a high-powered offense and you have a really good quarterback like Michael Penix, you got to keep him off the field.
Yeah,
cannot let him get in any kind of rhythm. You cannot have multiple 3-and-outs in a row, or you'll get blown out real fast. In the American, UTSA go into Houston, revenge on their mind of that overtime game from a year ago. Everybody's high on UTSA. I think Swaggy said it in our American show. Has there ever been a team that's new to a conference that everybody picks to win the conference, has the most all-conference players? I mean, they are absolutely stacked, and, Kirk Herbstreit didn't know that on his pregame show talking about
Shocking.
UTSA. Yeah, but Tip, Frank Harris, are they opening it up? This is a 1-point line still?
1 point. It might be 2 now. UTSA might be favored by 2. It's
Either
1
way.
or 2, yeah.
Yeah.
So the biggest question to me in this game is, what does Houston's offense look like with Clayton Tune and Tank Dell gone? It looks like Texas Tech transfer Donovan Smith is going to be the starting quarterback for Houston in this game. He's a dual threat quarterback, and we know how dual threat quarterbacks can always be tough, for defenses to defend. But again, with so many new starting pieces on an offense, they could be sloppy. They could play a little sloppy in the first half, and UTSA has the offense to jump on them quick. And before you know it, it's 14-0, it's 17-0 on 3 straight possessions early on, and Houston can't get anything going on offense, and then they're having to play catch-up against a very talented UTSA defense. So I think UTSA wins this game. They're favored. I think they win it on the road. And I said it earlier this week, I think it's going to be like a 31-17, 31-20 type of game with Houston possibly having to catch up in the second half. But give me the Roadrunners on the road.
Yeah, give me the Roadrunners big in this game. Houston's defense was pretty poor last year. I was over here talking about Houston last year as a New Year's Six team, and their defense just couldn't stop anybody. Murph, you're high on Kavorian Barnes.
I am.
UTSA is so sick because you could be high on 4 or 5 guys, and you're right about all of them. They're all big time. They're all NFL guys, and they're all looking to prove something because, for Kavorian Barnes, this is the first time that he is the guy.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's, I think, the key to that offense is who are you going to stop? You can't stop them all. The only way you can ruin it is if you can just completely blow them up, offensive line-wise. But I think that offensive line is very strong. And you take one away, if you take J.T. Clark away, you got Josh Cephas. You take both of those guys away, you got Frank Harris who can run, you got Barnes who can run. And I think Barnes is the key today. I think that he's going to have a massive game on the ground. And I seriously don't. I don't think Houston, and I don't think it's close. I think UTSA runs away. I think they prove why everyone thinks that they are the top team going into this conference. And give me the Roadrunners.
Yeah, I like it. And by the way, speaking of Herbstreit, and not knowing what receivers are back for UTSA, I kind of bring it up because the old swag bear called me when I was on the way down. Patrick McAfee has done it again. He got on game day this morning at 9 a.m. Eastern time, and they're playing a little game of roulette or something like that, and they pull up the Charlotte logo. Mind you, they are in Charlotte, North Carolina, by the way. And he's talking, just keeps on saying stuff until he thinks what conference they're in, and he never thinks he never figures it out what conference they're in. The guy probably gets paid. I mean, he's probably got, other than Stephen A. Smith and maybe Kirk Herbstreit, he's probably got the biggest contract at ESPN.
Yeah, easily.
And I'll tell you what, I'll give Herbstreit credit. He didn't bail him out. And I think they're falling apart over there. I think Herbstreit doesn't like the guy. I think Desmond Howard doesn't like the guy. I don't like the guy. I don't like watching the show. There's a reason we're doing this. We want you to watch us live every Saturday morning, Group of 5 Live. We talk about real college football every weekend. But, I mean, I'll do it. It's atrocious is what it is, Jeff.
It is atrocious.
Do you have the...
It's atrocious.
Beautiful.
It's atrocious.
I got it.
Game of the week. Jaguars of South Alabama, Green Wave of Tulane, from right here in New Orleans, Louisiana, Yulman Stadium. Place is going to be absolutely electric. I saw they sold out season tickets. I'm imagining this game is sold out or close to it. South Alabama, we know, is going to travel well. I have a buddy that I went to high school with that's flying to New Orleans from Fort Lauderdale, Florida today. He said the plane was full of Tulane fans. I didn't know there was a bunch of Tulane alum in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, but damn it, they're coming to New Orleans for this game because it is a monster. Murph, I'm going to start with you first. Give me your opening statement. What do you got? What are you looking forward to the most?
Well, I mean, I think this is the premier matchup of two Group of 5 teams, possibly in the entire season this year. I mean, you have Tulane, who won the American last year, had a fantastic win against a great USC team in the Cotton Bowl. And then you have South Alabama, who's returning 9 starters on offense, 9 starters on defense, didn't lose a whole lot of firepower, and they almost beat Troy and made it to the Sun Belt Championship game last year. So I think this is a phenomenal matchup. I'm excited to see the stadium, see the atmosphere, get to rap with some Tulane faithful at the tailgate today. And then you got 2 of the best quarterbacks in the country, not just Group of 5, but in the country as well, in Michael Pratt and Carter Bradley. Now, I think Carter Bradley has a chip on his shoulder. I think everybody's talking about Michael Pratt as they should be. He's a phenomenal player. He had that marquee game last year in the Cotton Bowl. But I think Carter Bradley, if I were him, I'd have a little bit of in the back of my mind that everybody, all the talking heads are talking about Michael
They're
Pratt,
sleeping
not
on him a
talking
little bit.
about me.
They're sleeping on him.
Well, and here's the crazy thing about that is Carter Bradley threw for 200 more yards than Michael Pratt did last year. He threw for 1 more touchdown. Today, and for this season, he's got to cut down on the interceptions. He threw 12 a year ago, which is not terrible, but it ain't good. And you look at Michael Pratt, who threw 5.
Yeah.
You want to know how you run through the American Conference. You want to know how you beat Southern Cal in the Cotton Bowl. You don't turn it over, and 5 interceptions from your quarterback is a pretty good number. But, you know, with South Alabama, they, to me, return so much talent. And it's crazy to me that nobody's really talking about them except for Group of 5 folks, Sun Belt folks, South Alabama fans. But Tulane better look out now.
Yeah.
Because it's not just the quarterback, Tip. It's LaDamian Webb, the running back. It's the defense. It's everything.
It's everything. That's exactly right. I mean, yeah, South Alabama, they lost wide receiver Jalen Wayne from last year, but you're returning your other top 2 wide receivers. You're returning 4 starters on the offensive line. LaDamian Webb's back. Obviously, we've talked about Carter Bradley. South Alabama's defense is loaded from front to back. And Tulane, I mean, we know Michael Pratt's good, and he's going to probably do it. You know, he's going to do his thing. But, I mean, Tulane lost 5 of their top 7 receivers, including Tajay Spears from last season. So you gotta take that into consideration. But a good quarterback like Michael Pratt, he should be able to make the wide receivers that are on the field around him better. Like he'll put it where it needs to be. He's going to make them look good. But yeah, it just so excited about this matchup today.
Well, and Jaquan Jackson for Tulane is going to have to be the guy. A couple years ago, they thought he was going to be the guy, and he got injured. And then some other guys sort of passed him up. And then last year, you know, Deuce Watson, those guys had fantastic years. For South Alabama, look out. Javon Ivory, transfer wide receiver from Memphis. By the way, Group of 5 blue blood. Look out for him. Colin Lacey, Devin Boyce. You think defense when you think of South Alabama, but their offense is pretty damn good too.
Yeah, I mean, you return a 1,000-yard rusher in Webb, that offensive line. I just didn't think they lost much at all last season, whether it was the transfer portal or to graduation. So they're coming back with all this ton of experience that they learned from last year, playing Troy, playing in all these big games. And, you know, Tulane, who's going to step up?
That's right.
Which running back is going to be the guy? Because that is a ton of offensive production that you have to replace. So the opportunities are going to be there. They got a great offensive line. Who's going to get the ground game going? Because I think that is key to them controlling the time of possession, keeping that ball out of Carter Bradley's hands, and letting that defense go to work. Tip, I know you really like them.
I'll tell you who it's going to be. It's going to be Shoddy Clayton Johnson. This guy behind Tajay Spears last year averaged almost 6 yards per carry. I love that stat. And he's behind an offensive line that's returning 4 starters and has 2, maybe 3 guys that are going to be all conference. And you bring in an LSU transfer at left tackle, Cameron Wire. So, I mean, the offensive line is loaded. They're very, very good. So I look to see I see Shoddy Clayton Johnson. If he can hit that 6 yards per carry number today, it's going to be tough to stop this Tulane offense.
And that's what you do, right? When you lose a bunch of skill guys, you go back to old reliable. You go back, you say, okay, Sincere Haynesworth. You say, okay, Michael Pratt. let's be conservative until one of these guys, whether it be Clayton Johnson or Jaquan Jackson, that step up and are the ultimate weapon. But that offensive line, yeah. And it ain't like Cameron Wire's a guy that didn't play at LSU. He's got 11 starts at LSU.
Right.
So this is a fantastic offensive line. They're going against a South Alabama defense that it's a little different. If you watch them play, they're going to line up essentially 2 defensive tackles with their hand down, and then they're going to have guys walking all over the place. They're going to have D-end outside linebacker type to the boundary, D-end outside linebacker type to the field, and then they're going to have Yam Banks walking around kind of as a safety. It's a tough defense to block because you never know who's coming, who's dropping back. And Jeff, as a quarterback, that's where you got to be on it, right? If you've got to change the play at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
Fortunately, you've got a veteran quarterback and a veteran center that can, take it easy, guys. This isn't going to go our way if we run this play. Let's change it.
Yeah, and that's the key is Michael Pratt being able to diagnose pre-snap what the defense is in, where the pressures are coming, get out of a bad play, get into a good play, because all it takes is one. All it takes is one misdiagnosis. You think the blitz has come from here. You slide the line that way, and all of a sudden those 2 guys drop back, and you got a corner blitz coming behind you. You don't see it. Ball gets knocked out. Now it's a turnover. So it's going to be playing a defense like this where they're just coming from all angles. You've got to be locked in every single play. You got to know what you're seeing, and post-snap you got to confirm it, because it can change in the snap of a finger.
And that's a good point. So we talk about, how talented South Alabama's O-line is, but in this atmosphere tonight, with how loud this crowd's going to be with a defense like that, you got to be able to make sure that everyone on that offensive line is communicating, and that if the play changes or whatever, you got to make sure those calls and those reads are communicated loud and effectively, or you're gonna see a wide open gap, and that's where South Alabama could get in trouble on offense tonight.
Those guys have got to be in sync.
Correct.
On the offensive line. Unfortunately, for both of these teams, they've got 4 starters returning. So you'd think, when you got that many O linemen returning, it's almost like you don't even have to communicate, because you just know. You just know what the other guy's going to do. It's like that's your guy that you've lived with for 4 years. You guys eat together, you go to classes together, you practice together, you spend so much time together that it's almost like you just, tap them on the hip and give them a look, and you've basically called out a play by doing that. And so that's what for both of these teams are going to have to do, but especially for South Alabama when this crowd gets going, because I got a feeling it's going to be wild in there tonight. But
can't wait.
Let's talk Tulane's defense a little bit before we make picks, because they lose quite a bit too on the defensive side of the ball. Dorian Williams, the middle linebacker, that guy's going to start probably for the Buffalo Bills this year.
Yeah.
So this is not a guy that was like a kind of good player. Oh, he was all conference. This is a guy that's going to start for one of the best teams in the NFL this year at middle linebacker of all places. So Tulane's got a lot to replace on defense. They do return Patrick Jenkins and Darius Hodges. And we talk about it all the time. Anytime you got a defensive lineman that wears number 0 or any single digit, especially if you're a guy like Jenkins, who's a defensive tackle.
Yeah.
You remember, he's the guy who came up with the big safety in the Cotton Bowl, and he just freaking abused that USC offensive line right there. So they still have some pieces. But again, South Alabama's offense has all the pieces coming back. So that's the matchup, Jeff. I don't know. I'm nervous if I'm a Tulane fan.
Yeah, I mean, with the spread being 6.5, I don't, maybe Vegas has a beat on it. They normally are pretty darn close. I just think that's really high. I think this game could go either way, but that he is the key on that defense. If he can get pressure up the middle, he's going to disrupt the ground game. He's going to disrupt the pass game and make it very difficult for South Alabama's offense to move the ball. So if he can get that push right up the middle, Tulane's going to have a good day.
Tip, any more thoughts before we make picks on this game and go grab some food and cold drinks?
Now, I just want to highlight the matchups I'm looking for. I think this game, and you'll appreciate this as an offensive lineman, I think this game is going to be won in the trenches tonight. Yeah. You have Tulane's offensive line and their running game against this strong Alabama front seven, and then the exact same thing on the other side. South Alabama's offensive line and running game versus Tulane's front seven. I think whichever team can get the running game going, that opens up on play action, that opens up the passes down the field, that's where I think this game's going to be won tonight.
This game is going to be so physical. This is going to be such an intense game for a week 1 non-conference game. This is going to be, and these guys have not played often. I don't know why. I think it should be an annual rivalry game. I have absolutely no idea, especially with all this conference realignment. There's no reason they shouldn't be playing every year, but they don't play a lot. But the fans are going to be fired up for it. It's the Battle of Mardi Gras. Winner, maybe we'll go find some beads really fast before the game, and we'll rush the field and give them the winning coach of this game. I want to make some picks. I'm going to start with Tip first. Who you got?
So looking at Tulane on offense, if they're able to move the ball effectively, like I just talked about, not lose the time of possession battle, they have a great chance to win this game. South Alabama is good enough on both sides of the ball. They're returning plenty of starters on both sides of the ball that they can come out here and beat Tulane on the road in this hostile environment. But I think Michael Pratt and this Tulane running offense and also Michael Pratt passing, I think the Green Wave offense is just going to be too much in this game. It's going to be a very close, tight game the whole game. I think we're going to see a back and forth because I think we're going to realize real quick that South Alabama's ready to be here and they're ready for this game. And I see this going back and forth all game. But I like Tulane. I like the Green Wave at home, but close. I'm talking 6 points. I think South Alabama covers that 6.5 point spread.
Look out. You mentioned 3 points now, Tip, and this is for you. You gave me some O-line plug here. Look at this. Both kickers pretty good.
Yeah.
A year ago, Diego Guajardo, 18 of 19 on field goals, 46 of 48 on extra points. For Tulane, 43 of 43 on extra points and 11 of 12 field goals.
Both of those guys perfect from 40 to 49 yards. You love to see that.
So is this a game? If it's going to be 6.5, it's going to come down to, Tulane scores a touchdown late to win it. That's the only way this game's 6.5. But I just don't see it. I think very close. Tulane loses a bunch. They lose a bunch of skill guys on offense. They lose a bunch in the back end on defense. However, South Alabama, although this is a 10-win team from a year ago, they only had 1 win last year versus a team that finished with a winning record. So look out for that. Now, they played a bunch of teams really good. They should have beat UCLA. They could say they should have beat Troy last year. So I'm not saying they're not a good team, but this is a team that didn't get tested too much last year. I look at Michael Pratt. I think Carter Bradley might be the better quarterback, but I think Michael Pratt is the gamer, like we talk about. He's the Brett Favre. He's the guy that just it's a big game. He's going to make the plays, and I think just that offensive line of Tulane, I think, is going to control this game. And I'm picking Tulane at home, like Tip said, barely. Murph, finish us off.
Got two Tulane guys here. Well, let me see if I can't even the odds here. I think this is the marquee matchup of week 1 in the group of 5. I think you got 2 of the best quarterbacks going at it. I think it's going to be an incredible game. I just find it hard to believe that you can reload all of that talent, all of the production, and all of that experience. And when you get in tight games, especially early on in the season, I go back to experience. South Alabama did not lose a lot. They have a lot of guys that played in some pretty tight, big games last year that meant something, and that's going to carry over into this game. I think that Carter Bradley comes out hot. He proves why he's one of the top quarterbacks in the country. I think they use Webb very effectively on the ground to keep Pratt on the sideline. And I think that South Alabama defense smothers the receivers on the outside with Yan Banks. I'm going the Jaguars of South Alabama.
Jeff, have you ever watched when the Secret Service takes a president and they're covering him up as they're getting into the presidential convoy? Tip, are you ready to protect Jeff Murphy on the way out of here, Bruno's Tavern? Guys, that's all we got for you guys tonight. This morning, first time ever, live Saturday morning pregame show dedicated specifically to the group of 5. Cannot thank Bruno's Tavern and Lauren, the general manager, enough for this. It's not too late. It's not too late to come get a $6 Malibu rum drink. National Coconut Day today, so pretty incredible there. You can find our recap podcast every Tuesday night. We'll be live recapping these games from the weekend. Try to interview some head coaches. If you're new here, we need you to follow us on all the social media platforms at Group of Five Guys. We have a new merch website up and running. It's groupof5guys.com. You can go to YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We roll the podcast and these shows live on Twitter. Please go on there, give us a 5-star rating and review, leave a comment, tell your family and friends all about us. We'll see you Tuesday night. And next Saturday morning, in the words of Steeple_PC_51, Coastal Carolina, Jacksonville State, we'll see you in Conway.